And in the U.S., stock futures point to a modestly upbeat start for Monday, with investors looking to see if the Dow Industrials can try for another record as optimism fueled by strong jobs data lingers. A couple of Federal Reserve speakers will be among the highlights later. But in the meantime, looking at the futures numbers now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average Futures is 0.15% higher at 22,050, while the S&P 500 futures added 0.9%. The Nasdaq futures put on 0.11% to 5,904.75. In the meantime, stocks started the week higher in Asia, building on Friday's gains in the Americas and Europe, as an upbeat U.S. employment report helped sentiment behind demand for goods from Asia. Australia's S&P ASX 200 was up 0.9% after falling in the previous three sessions. Elsewhere, Korea's Kospi climbed 0.4%, continuing a rebound from a sell-off last week, stoked by the potential for tax increases there. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index rose 0.4% as it continued to march towards 2015's best level, which, if topped, would put the index at heights not seen in a decade. The Shanghai Composite reversed early losses to close up 0.54%. The index has risen for 7 straight weeks, and that's its longest winning streak since early 2015. Away from the markets now, the federal government of Nigeria has offered for subscription 2-year and 3-year savings bonds to investors at 13.53% and 14.53% respectively from today, August the 7th, to Friday, August the 11th. The statement from the Debt Management Office says the 2-year bond will mature in August 2019, while the 3-year bond has a maturity date of August 2020. The offer has a minimum subscription of 5,000 naira, with increases thereafter in multiples of 1,000 naira up to a maximum subscription of 50 million naira. According to the DMO, the bond is backed by the full faith and credit of the federal government, with quarterly coupon payments to bondholders. The savings bond is expected to help broaden the country's funding base. In the meantime, Nigeria's gross official reserves increased by $550 million in July to $30.8 billion. Investment analyst Ebion Quest says there's been an accumulation of at least $6.9 billion since the lowest level in October 2016. According to Ebion Quest, the pickup in oil production has been responsible for the sustained additions, but the figures provided by the CBN are gross numbers masking the swap transactions with Nigerian banks. Given the positive returns from the investor and exporters FX window to the tune of $4.9 billion between April and July, the Apex Bank is not expected to revise its FX policy anytime soon. Away from Nigeria now, the Reserve Bank of South Africa says the country's net forex reserves rose to $42.41 billion in July from $42.23 billion in June. Data from the central bank also shows gross reserves fell to $46.74 billion from $47.3 billion. The forward position, which represents the central bank's unsettled or swap transactions, increased to $3.11 billion from $2.46 billion. Well, there's more coming from South Africa, and this time it's the unemployment rate data, which remains unchanged at 27.7% of the labor force in the second quarter from the first quarter of 2017. In its quarterly labor force survey, which polls households, Statistics South Africa said this amounts to 6.17 million people without jobs in the 3 months to end June, compared with 6.21 million previously. The expanded definition of unemployment, which includes people who have stopped looking for work, rose slightly to 36.6% in the second quarter from 36.4% in the previous quarter. In the meantime, Platinum Miner Lonmin PLC plans to cut costs and monetize select assets, including the sale of excess processing capacity of up to 500,000 platinum ounces per year. The platinum mining industry says this is to maximize cash from processing operations and preserve cash due to a subdued South African economy. The company explains that its current cash position makes it difficult to sustain capital expenditure into its rolling units, and it's looking out for funding partners to preserve about 5,000 jobs. Lonmin also plans to reduce annual overhead costs by at least $37.3 million by September the 30th, 2018 through right-sizing of operations. Well, let's cross over to Mauritius, where inflation fell to 5.3% year-on-year in July from 6.4% in June. The Statistics Office says the main contributors to the change in index were vegetables, cigarettes and other goods and services. The headline inflation rate for the 12 months ending July 2017 works out to 2.7% compared to 0.9% for the 12 months ending July 2016. Business Incorporated returns in just a moment. Please stay with us.